Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica Vargas Stidvent, Executive Director of the Center for Women in Law. Welcome to today's installment of the Susan Blount Power Lunch series, a conversation with Chief Justice Rebeca Martinez and Dolores Atencio. Our Power Lunch series showcases the career paths of prominent lawyers and public figures in an informal conversational environment. And it seems particularly appropriate during Hispanic Heritage Month to host two outstanding lawyers who are Latinas. Today's event has been approved for 1 hour of CLE credit by the Texas State Bar. If you're watching us live in Zoom, you'll receive an email tomorrow with information on how to claim that credit. If you happen to be calling in by phone, please let us know that you attended today by sending an email to Center for Women in Law. That's all one word, Center for Women in Law, at law.utexas.edu. And feel free to post your questions for our guests in the Q&A. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Center for Women in Law is a national resource and champion for women lawyers, generating lasting change within the legal profession. We pursue that mission in a variety of ways, including programs like today's event, which is sponsored by the Hortense Ward Speakers Fund. We're very grateful for that support and for supporters like so many of you who are watching today. Gifts of any amount support the many programs and initiatives of the Center for Women in Law and advance our mission. And we thank you for your generosity. And if you look in the chat, you'll see a link if you want to make a gift to us today. So let's meet today's Power Lunch guests. I want to welcome them and hope that they'll join us on screen. Today we have the Honorable Rebeca Martinez, who serves as Chief Justice of the Texas Fourth Court of Appeals. She was elected to the court in 2012, re-elected in 2018, and elected Chief Justice in 2020. The Fourth Court of Appeals is currently the only all-female appellate court in the country, and 6 of the 7-member court are Latinas. Chief Justice Martinez clerked at Mintz, Levencone, Ferris, Glofsky, and Papeo in Boston, Massachusetts, served with U.S. Magistrate Judge Eduardo de Asis in the Southern District of Texas, and later with Justice Federico Hinojosa on the Texas 13th Court of Appeals. She enjoyed a 20-year litigation practice, first with 2 prestigious law firms, and then as president of her own law practice. She received dual degrees from Southern Methodist University in Dallas as a university scholar, and she earned her JD from Boston University School of Law, where she received the prestigious Faculty Award. As you might imagine, she holds numerous positions at the local, state, and national level. Currently, she is the chair-elect of the State Bar of Texas Judicial Section. She serves on the Pattern Jury Charge Subcommittee as Latina Commissioner of the Hispanic National Bar Association and on the advisory board of the University of Texas LBJ School of Public Policy's Women's Campaign School and on the Purple Campaign. She is a past recipient of Judge of the Year by the State Bar of Texas Hispanic Issues Section, has served on the board of directors for the Texas Young Lawyers Association, the State Bar of Texas, and the National Association of Women Judges. She has served on the curriculum committee of the Texas Center for the Judiciary, and for years has contributed as author and speaker at numerous continuing legal education programs throughout the state. And she lives in San Antonio, Texas, with her husband and family. So welcome, Justice Martinez. We're very excited to have you. We also have today Colorado native Dolores Atencio. And so Dolores, can you join us on screen?
I am attempting to do that.
Great. Ms. Atencio received her JD from the University of Denver College of Law and a BA from Colorado College. In 2015, she became the first visiting scholar at the University of Denver Latinx Center, Sturm College of Law, where she founded the National Legal History Project, Luminarias de la Ley, to identify and chronicle the accomplishments of the first Latina lawyers in the country, circa 1880 to 1980. In 2021, she served as the ALLP Interim Executive Director for the newly formed Alliance for Latinx Leadership and Policy, promoting Latinx attorneys for appointment to the new administration. Licensed in Colorado for 40 years, she has worked within and outside the legal profession, starting as a Reggie Fellow, then serving as Assistant Attorney General, Administrative Law Judge, and Director of the Colorado Division of Administrative Judges. She ended her legal career in private practice, specializing in employment litigation and education law. And she was the first development director for the public bilingual radio station, KUVO. and was vice president and general counsel for an IndyCar racing company. Throughout her career, she's been actively involved as a bar leader and in community work, including in reapportionment activities. She was president of the Hispanic National and Colorado Bar Associations, served on the American Bar Association's Commission on Women, and chaired the Denver Women's Commission. She is a past chair of DU's Law Alumni Council and leads the Latinx Law Alumni Chapter, and we're very proud to say is a consortium member of the Center for Women in Law. Ms. Atencio has earned recognition as a national expert on Latina lawyers in the United States. She has taught, produced, and or spearheaded numerous works on Latina lawyers, including Las Primeras, a 50-minute slideshow on 21 Latina trailblazers. While chairing the HNBA Latina Commission, she spearheaded the first 2 national studies on Latina lawyers, and she's completing phase 2 of the Luminarias project research, which will be published in May 2023, and she plans more additional writings. For her work, Dolores was honored with the 2021 HNBA President's Award, HNBA's Latina Commission Primera Abogada Award, the prestigious Otley Award, Mexico's highest honor bestowed to American citizens of Mexican descent, and 3 CHBA awards, Outstanding Attorney Award, Outstanding Law Firm Award for Reapportionment Litigation, and Lifetime Achievement Award. She was one of 4 female National Bar presidents who received Founder's Honor for establishing the National Coalition of Bar Associations of Color in 1992. So welcome, Dolores Atencio.
Thank you.
And so I wanted to, we don't normally read lengthy bios, but I thought it was really important to read the 2 of you, because as I told you earlier, I don't trust the 2 of you to really tell us all about your accomplishments and many awards. But I thought they both were fascinating and interesting career paths. And so I'm going to get off stage, but I wanted to sort of throw out the first question, which is this the path, are these the paths you planned? Did you think we would be reading these bios when you first entered law school? So I'm going to let you start there.
I'm going to kick it to Dolores because I feel so unaccomplished after knowing her bio. But my first introduction to Dolores was as a Hispanic National Bar Association Latina Commissioner, and selecting from a large group of just talented, amazing Latina lawyers across the country. She stood out and was the recipient, as her bio indicated, recipient of, she was selected as the Primera Abogada Award, which again was an accomplishment in of itself, because it was such a competitive field as well. So that was the first time I read her bio and got to know a little bit about her, and we were delighted to extend that award to her back in 21. It was. So I'm just delighted to be here with you, Dolores, and finally see, have some FaceTime with you and be able to converse. And welcome to everyone who's attending on this virtual audience. I'm delighted that normally we would have these in person, and our audience would be limited to those who could actually make it to Austin. So I think that we benefit from a greater audience to be able to learn so much more about you and your work. And can I throw out again, do you really think that you would have, back graduating from law school, that you would ever see and imagine all of your accomplishments that we've learned just about?
No, thank you, Justice. I feel less accomplished than you. So, I'm happy to be sharing this time with you as well. And thank you, because the Las Primeras Award by the Latina Commission meant a great deal to me. The answer is absolutely no. I didn't expect to be here. And by the way, the only reason in my case that there's such a long bio is because I'm just older. And the reason you get Lifetime Achievement Awards is because if you hang in there long enough, you're sort of one of the last ones standing around, and that's why you get those awards. Not that I don't appreciate them. They were great.
I know.
And one of the things I know that our audience may be wanting to hear about with respect to you as well, Justice, so I will start. I certainly didn't expect to be here at all. I grew up in Southern Colorado, in Pueblo, Colorado, and I grew up in my grandfather's home with my mother and my two brothers. And my grandfather was a steel worker. I ended up sharing a rollaway bed in a bedroom with my mother and my two aunts. My mother and I slept on the rollaway bed, and no one in my family previously had gone to college or to law school. And I really credit my grandfather, who was an avid reader and a union activist, and my mother, who got pregnant with me at 16 and had to work, was dark complected, and so experienced a lot of discrimination. And between the two of them, I sort of had it in my head from a very early age, literally since about 5, that I was going to be a lawyer. I had no idea what that meant. Ended up going to college, and from college to law school here in Denver. And, when I started law school, I didn't have enough money for a dictionary, a legal dictionary. So I was completely lost my first quarter. Long story short, the actually only thing that I wanted to do coming out of law school was to be a public defender. And someday over a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, I can retell that whole story of why I was not selected by a Latino public defender. And so I basically had to figure out what I was going to do with my career. And it sort of just went where it went without seemingly much control on my end. So the long answer is I absolutely didn't expect to be here in these shoes, having done the things that I've been able to work at. And so I'm happy that I'm here, though. How about you, Justice?
I think your story is shared by so many, particularly first generation lawyers, Latina in particular, or just a person of color. We have, these institutional and social and economic barriers for us to really, through school, after education, during education, post-education, and getting into whatever career field, these are obstacles. They're not open doors that are immediately available to us. So like you, I came from, I'm also a first gen, didn't know what law review was when I went to law school, didn't have a legacy of lawyers to look up to and get tips and advice. Similarly, had financial obstacles, had to go, my thing was always to try to get into the best school I can get into, who gave me the most amount of money. Mm-hmm. Like you, my parents were instrumental, critical figures, as parents are for most of us, to value education. And despite those obstacles, despite school counselors giving us applications for community college and not inviting us when the Ivy League reps come to school, those are inherent. Sadly, I hear that they still exist today. And so, I just, many individuals I think know a little bit about her because she's been celebrated as a UT law grad, but someone who came from Laredo, graduated from high school, went to college, went to UT law, and was not made aware of opportunities, whether it was to clerk or go to a big law firm, or really even know what she should be aspiring to, and found herself, because of her own tenacity, to find those opportunities and seek them out. And most of them came because of friends or fellow students to sharing with her these opportunities. And so she went off after law school and clerked for a judge, worked at Big Law, turned to MALDEF, did pro bono, got a fellowship. And she sits right now as Justice Sonia Sotomayor's law clerk. Her name is Alejandra Avila, a graduate of UT Law. And this is someone who I think now so many future Latina lawyers, I call them Latinas, who really aspire to get into the legal community. And we have to fully appreciate that with more women of color in the legal community like yourself, who are pursuing so many opportunities to bring light and attention, as you have with the Luminarias, Las Primeras, the publication you're doing. I think that is important work because we really didn't have anybody to blow our horn, right, in the past, to acknowledge. I'm as was mentioned, on a court of all women justices, and it's not like we got a lot of press. It's not like anybody's even aware of that information because we tend not to celebrate our own accomplishments. It takes someone else. So that's why I appreciate so much what you're doing, Dolores, to bring attention and celebrate the accomplishments of Latina lawyers in the legal community, not just in Texas, but all over the country. And I think that's a conversation that that we're invited to have, right? What's the Latina experience in the law, in the legal field, maybe even just here in Texas? What have you found to be true about the Latina experience that you've been able to research, having spoken to and investigated into all of these women that have accomplished something, they have become first in our legal community? I know we have a lot of mutual friends that you've identified. What from your perspective, what does that look like for
thank you for asking about that. I think I'll take a moment here just to try to share my screen because what the Justice is talking about is a project that I started back in 2015. And let me try to, in 2015, I started Luminarias de la Ley and Luminaries of the Law, which really was an offshoot from the Hispanic National Bar Association Latina Commission, where I actually served as the first co-chair of that commission. And we started Las Primeras in terms of the award, but we also picked up the research that I had actually done, started in 93 and 94, but it's a national legal history research that's chronicling the first Latina Hispanic females who graduated from U.S. law schools over a 100-year period from 1880 to 1980. And the project endeavors to document the individual and collective accomplishments of these women. And basically it is original research, unwritten stories. Here you see some of our luminarias, and I've given them that name to indicate that they received or earned a law degree between that 100-year period. But basically, luminarias are the country's first Latina presidential appointees confirmed by the Senates or U.S. ambassadors and other high-level executives, U.S. attorneys, judges at all levels, state attorney generals, district attorneys, and public defenders, civil rights litigators, law partners and in-house counsel, law professors. These are the first Latina lawyers that in the country that actually ended up achieving these milestones. And just to share for you in terms of answering the question of what I've learned, my research is really statistic oriented. That is to say that I've identified who these Latinas are and am now in the process of drafting my law review article that'll be published in May. But I'm going to give you some examples of what the research has shown. Here is an absolutely beautiful photo of Adelfa Callejo, who was an SMU graduate. I had the pleasure of knowing her. And what my research is showing me is what you see up on this screen is there are 93 years in Pennsylvania from the time that the first woman was licensed in that state to the time that the first Latina was licensed in that state. So 93 years pass. In Washington state, there's a difference of 88 years. In Colorado, my home state in New Jersey, a period of 79 years. Texas, 53 years from the time that the first female was licensed and the first Latina was licensed. And in Arizona and California, a difference of 48 years. So, there's anywhere between 40 to 90 years of difference in terms of when we were licensed after our female colleagues. There are, and this photo here, which I love, is former Representative Irma Rangel, who was the first Mexican-American female lawyer to be elected to the Texas state legislature. And there you can see that she was elected in 1976, 44 years after Texas State Representative Edith Williams was elected to the Texas State House. And what we have here are some examples. There's a difference of between 40 and 70 years between the first milestones achieved by non-Latina lawyers and Latina lawyers. So for example, the first appearance before the US Supreme Court was by Belva Lockwood in 1906. 69 years later was Miriam de Rodon in 1976, a Puerto Rican lawyer. The first state court judge was Florence Ellen in Ohio in 1922. And then Dorothy Comstock Riley, who was Mexican-American, became a judge in Michigan in 1976. And then the first female state attorney general elected was Patricia Madrid in 1999, 40 years, and that was New Mexico, 40 years after the first woman in Pennsylvania in 1959. So there are incredible decades of differences between, I am finding, between when Latinas entered the law, when they achieved milestones, and when non-Hispanic female lawyers achieved those same milestones. The one area where there is the least discrepancy, we swing back to Texas, and it is Edna Cisneros, who at the age of 26 became the first Latina to be elected in the nation in Texas in Willacy County, in contrast to Charlotte Smallwood, who first became elected in New York and Wyoming County. And the distinction there is appointed versus elected district attorneys. And in this photo, which I think is just wonderful, Edna is seated showing her assistant some paperwork. Her sister is seated right across from her, and that's Diana Cisneros. Both were UT Law Austin grads. And the interesting story there is that when Edna finally retired, her sister Diana ran and took over as district attorney. I will relay one sad story there in terms of Luminarias and trying to identify who these women are and writing about their accomplishments. As a collective body, most people don't know about them, who they are, where they graduated from, when they graduated. And so the point is to identify them, document their contributions. And so I have been doing this research for the past 5 years. I'm going to stop sharing at this point. And one of the sad stories that I have to tell is my husband is a native of Brownsville. His family's from Laredo. And so I flew frequently to see my in-laws. And, I had been researching Edna Cisneros for some time. And then one night, probably at 2 a.m, because, that's when I was able to do some of my work, I found an obituary. And Edna Cisneros had passed. And what was really sad was that she was in a nursing home in McAllen. And I had flown into McAllen a number of times. And I did not know at that point in time when I was flying in that she was there. And so I missed being able to speak with her. But, they have those obituary websites now. And I that morning was typing in and telling the family, this is who I am. I know this might be a bit odd, but I would love to hear about your aunts. And they actually wrote me back and sent me photos and information about the two of them. So, what I've shared is just a little bit of the information that I've been able to discern from the research. And as I've indicated, it'll be published in May.
Well, we look forward to it for sure. And any sort of maybe 2 or 3 bullets of common denominators of the challenges facing Latina women, women generally, but especially Latinas in the legal field throughout this, last half century?
Well, my focus has been really on the earlier years, but as when I co-chaired the Latina Commission, we did 2 national studies on the status of Latina lawyers in the country. And until that time, there had been no studies done on the obstacles that Latinas faced. And the one obstacle that still exists today that is unique to them is the intersection of race, gender, and ethnicity. So, we have both Afro-Latinas, the range from Afro-Latinas to Mexican-Americans, Puerto Ricans, et cetera, as well as gender, and then ethnicity layered onto that. And, what we're finding, sadly, because those studies were done in 2009 and 2010, That's when they were printed. And not much, relatively little has changed from that point in time. What we found, and one of the reasons why I've pursued the Luminarias project, is that we have very few role models. Our role models are not visible. And what do they say? What you can see, you can be. And so it's important for us to document those histories. Obviously, financial resources are still an obstacle today, as well as, the same type of thing that you've referred to, which is grooming, expanding the pool, exposing and teaching our Latina youth that a career in the legal profession is actually doable, achievable for them. So those are still some of the same obstacles that we are facing that we faced previously. And the other thing that kind of struck me, which is still true today as it was when we did the studies and when I was a young lawyer, is that about 50% of our community of the Latina lawyers either do not have children or limited the number of children that they have. So there are very small families for the most part that Latina lawyers have. And what we found also interesting to the study is that a number of the Latina lawyers were actually the breadwinners of their families. And that's interesting, something that you wouldn't expect.
I find that while, as you mentioned, there's sometimes disparities between generally women and then women of color, those disparities are probably equal, but I think generally women, particularly in the legal community, still suffer those challenges and have become, I've observed, more and more either an equal breadwinner or someone who can, because of their license, maybe even bring more bacon to the household, and that creates additional demands. And as you grow your family, these are all, I think, something that women have been experiencing for decades. And I think from my own perspective, as someone who was from the beginning, either the first to graduate from in your family to from high school or college, or for sure graduate school, these challenges facing women today are the same but different. Being involved with the Women's Bar Association here locally, here in San Antonio, we have a lead academy that women have put together so that we could help support and bring together women to provide not just leadership opportunities, but opportunities to network and see the breadth of diversity within the legal community that women are entertaining in. They're not all litigators, right? They're in-house counsel, they're GCs, they're opening up their own businesses, and being able to find themselves in a community that share a lot of common goals, a lot of common challenges. That's a network that I envy as someone who graduated 30 years ago this year. In fact, there's just more of us to be able to lean on and to learn from. And that is something I think that is improving every day. St. Mary's here broke a record where their class last year, I think it was more women. Over 50% were women of the incoming class. That's something for us to celebrate. As someone who was, a very small, much smaller percentage, I myself was the first, not the first Latina, because we had Puerto Ricans and Cubans and Colombians, but I was the first Mexican-American to graduate from my law school at BU Law. And that was just in 1992. Mm-hmm. And to be able to go back, I've been invited back. I'm on the advisory board now of the law school, the Dean's Advisory Board. And now the school has the first and only one of few Black deans, woman dean, who is, teaching critical race theory, is an expert on critical race theory. Her name is Dean Angela Onwaki-Willig. And to be able to see that structure and what impact that has on the law school community and in the incoming class. We have many more women. Even I think the schools now are looking and appreciating that a diverse student body lends to the value of your legal education. And I think that law firms as well and corporations, they're seeing the value of having not just more women, but women of color add to their legal force, that there's value to that, especially as we grow. Certainly as a member of the judiciary, when I graduated, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed a year after I graduated from law school. In fact, she had visited our campus about 2 years in 95. I graduated in 92. And to be able, I think when more women see someone that looks like them on the bench, that also has led women to feel like, you know what, maybe that's something I can do. And I now meet women in law school. When I ask, what do you want to be? They say, I want to grow up to be a judge. I can't recall any woman in my law school days, as you said, ever aspiring to do anything more than maybe hope to get a job, right, and have doors open to them. But now the opportunities are much greater, and it's great to be able to see much more water. But beginning in the in just the last 7-8 years, and even in Texas, more and more women are joining the ranks of the judiciary. Women of color, people of color throughout. And as you can see, I celebrate now, our court can celebrate being majority Latina on our court, and that's changing across the state. And I think that's great in the sense that it will help another female say to themselves, this is not a lost cause. If she can do it, I can do it. With any level of tenacity, despite no door being open to them, women are knocking them down now, and I'm delighted to see that.
Well, I have a question for you that I want to come back to that as concerns your current experience, but I wanted to share that there are certainly more Latina lawyers today than there were when I became licensed in 1981. The HNBA Latina Commission estimates that there are about 25,000 Latina lawyers in the country. So out of the nearly 4 million lawyers in the country, we still only represent 2.5% of the total lawyer population. So, in contrast to our total US population, which is 18.7%. So we are grossly disproportionately underrepresented in the legal profession. I also wanted to mention that the American Bar Association Commission on Women had initiated a Women in Color research initiative, and they published 2 reports looking at women of color in law firms and women of color in corporate America. Those were published in 2006 and 2012. They're available on the ABA website, as are the 2 Latina Commission studies that we did. They're available on the HNBA website. And ultimately, what both our studies found and what the ABA studies found is that women of color are basically continue to suffer the most discrimination. They face the greatest obstacles in succeeding in the legal profession, even getting beyond getting admitted to law school, graduating, passing the bar, and then moving upward mobility. It's toughest on women lawyers of color. I used to serve on the ABA Commission on Women, and back then the ABA we had the Multicultural Women Attorney Network. And they published a report in 1994 called "The Burdens of Both the Burdens of Both, the Privileges of Neither." And unfortunately, that title still is accurate today as it was back then. But having shared that, I really kind of want to shift and ask you, Justice, what is it like? Is there a difference? Do you believe or sense or experience a difference on the bench with an all-woman bench in contrast to your experience having served with men?
From first, let me incorporate a question as part of this discussion. I noticed that there was a question about how important it is for women lawyers, and certainly Hispanic women lawyers, to get involved. I think that the opportunities that I've had have been in large part because, okay, so I'm a proud daughter of a Vietnam veteran, a military brat. I was in a different school every year of my life until I graduated from high school in Corpus Christi, how I pronounced it, because I didn't know anything about Texas except Austin was the capital at the time. And I think that because of, in large part because of my parents, like, without getting emotional, if it wasn't for my mom and dad, I'd be holding a mop instead of a gavel. I think that many of us who are given opportunities, I still think that sometimes, even though an opportunity is extended, they don't take it. For me, I had to fight my way through. I grew up with 3 brothers and a sister. There were 5 of us in a household, fighting over the Apple Jacks on, at the breakfast table. So I think that is part of my makeup, my framework, but it's also part of my lens. I never waited for someone to give me an opportunity. If there was something available, if there was an application to fill out or a door to knock on, I did it. I wasn't waiting for someone to give me an opportunity. I think that the women, a common denominator, I think, of women who've really been able to fulfill their why is that they didn't let anybody stop them, right? I'm going to hang up my shingle. I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, but I'm not scared. I have confidence enough in myself that I can do it and I can be it, and I'll get it done. And it takes a lot of hard work. It's not easy. It's not easy for women. It's certainly not any easier for women of color, even though on occasion, even now as an elected official, I've been, there is a school of thought that says, well, you got elected because of your last name. You got elected because you're a Latina. You're elected because you're in an arena that now allows that for it. And my response is like, hallelujah. If it's an opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of it. That's not to say that anybody should decide to go to law school if they don't have the wherewithal, if they can't get the grades, if they can't get the job done, if they can't do the hard work that it takes to study and pass the bar. But if you do, then opportunities should become available to them. Are they for women? No. Are there still law firms that will not hire a woman because of a bias against women, because they think, oh, at some point we're going to invest a lot of money in you and a lot of training, but at some point you're going to tell us that you're going to grow a family and you're going to get pregnant. And now those challenges, that bias, that discrimination still exists. I hear it all the time. And I think the women that are strong enough to just determine what their why is and to listen to it as their compass. It's okay to have a why that changes as your priorities change, right? And so I know part of your study is that there are women who wanted to enter into public service. What were the challenges that they have and the sacrifices and costs that they had going into public service? Adelpha, I know, I visited her at her law firm in Austin. She was a badass. But she juggled. I'm sure her relationships, her family, she made sacrifices. I know that happened. The same sacrifices that are being made by the women on my court, the women on trial judges, the women that serve in Congress, the women that serve at the Capitol and are fighting their way through that, those structural, that arena. There are sacrifices and costs. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, because I look back in my own experience. I focused a lot on my profession, and got married late, had difficulty growing a family. And I know others, my colleagues who were able to start a family, but maybe didn't also have, they need more than 24 hours a day to get something done. But the biggest, I think, burden they place on themselves is, am I doing the right thing? I think women typically suffer more so from a fear of failure, that imposter syndrome that we all suffer from, and they don't have a strong why. They question. They new opportunities come along, and then they question: should I go through that door? Let me change. Should I change firms? No, I should stay here and struggle. I don't have enough confidence in myself to say, you know what, I deserve more money. I need to go somewhere else. I'm not into bankruptcy. I really like, litigation. Let me go there, but I'm afraid because I haven't been doing it. My whole thing has been this pool, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to swim in that pool. I think if we reach out and ask for help, and for me, it wasn't just networking and collecting cards. It was getting involved. I got involved really quickly with the bar. I got active on the Texas Young Lawyers Association. I met so many individuals now. In fact, one of my good friends from TYLA board was Judge Melody Wills, and she's now the chair of the judicial section. I've been on the board with her. 30 years later, we're still very active. And I think that support group and that networking does help me feel like I'm not alone. It does affect me positively in my profession. And I think that I get a sense that I'm doing something meaningful with my law degree. And I think that all the women that you've studied, all the Luminarias in the lay, all the first, they all had a very strong why of public service. They had fears and anxieties, but they didn't let it become an obstacle, right? It didn't stop them from getting it done. And they knew that they were going to suffer criticism. They were going to suffer, you can't do it. Why you? You shouldn't be here. Is this a room that you should be in? I had really great models like Adelfa, right? Like so many others. And if it weren't for the first in our legal community, whether it's, Justice Yanez, Justice Linda Yanez, when I was clerking on the 13th Court of Appeals, she was the first Latina ever to be appointed by Governor Ann Richards. It was like late 92, 93. Justice Alma Lopez was also appointed by the governor in about, I think, 93. Subsequently, she might've been the second, but she was the first Latina Chief Justice ever to be elected, not appointed, elected as a Chief Justice. I follow in her footsteps. And Amparo is Justice Yanez's daughter, who I remember graduated from college, and now she was sworn in on a Houston Court of Appeals. And so these legacies are really going to, I think, provide a wider path for more women and women to follow along, because now it's been paved, right, for so many women. And I just remark about 2 Latinas, but there are so many others. I'm right now, and I'll shout out to her, is my friend and colleague, Dori Contreras, who is the first Latina to ever, a woman Chief Justice on the 13th Court of Appeals, where I clerked about 30 years ago. She was the first. She's the first Chief Justice also to serve on that court. And she's the first Chief of the Chiefs. There's a council of Chief Justices of all the courts. She's the first Latina to ever serve. And for the first time in history, as of 2020, there are now 3 Latina chiefs in Texas. And I'm proud to serve alongside Chief Contreras and Chief Justice Yvonne Rodriguez in El Paso. So things are changing. More women are in the judiciary. Of the 80 justices, we're not quite 50%, but we're approaching there. And I think that it improves the confidence, the public's confidence in the judiciary. which right now we know is at an all-time low. From the US Supreme Court all the way down to our local courthouses, we need, as women in the legal community, to help improve the public's confidence in the legal system as a whole, certainly within the judiciary. And I think for us to be more involved, to go back to the schools, to do everything that we as part of our why, we have to take advantage of the opportunities in whatever branch of government they want to be in, or even locally, you know, from their church to their PTA to just getting involved. And we women with law licenses, I think, have greater opportunities to make change as we see women really fighting as gladiators in those arenas, whether it's in school. I went to I'll mention this really quickly, is that last night I went to the San Antonio Independent School District gala to celebrate the accomplishments of teachers in the district. And one honoree was a colonel now who was the first Latino recognized by President Reagan, who really fought to change Hispanic Heritage Month. It used to be only a week long. And because of his efforts, and he's here from San Antonio, it's now a month long, which begins October 15th through November 15th to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And it's just great to be able to still see these individuals really fighting in the arena. And so that's a really long answer to your question, Dolores.
There are several questions that have come in, and let's try to, I'll try to answer some of them. One of them is, and I appreciate the question says, this may be too personal, but as accomplished Latina lawyers of a certain age, I love that. How do you juggle family obligations and personal non-law interests outside of your profession? And what would you do differently? Let me say that I think my experience was very typical. I am in that group of that 100-year span. As I indicated earlier, many of those women, 50% of those women chose not to have children if they married. Some, like Representative Irma Rangel, chose not to marry at all because they felt that marriage and family would be an impediment to them succeeding within the legal profession. And they probably, for them, were not wrong in making that particular choice. Others had families, they have smaller families. I have one daughter. It was, even with one daughter, it was difficult to juggle the demands of not only practicing. At the time that my daughter was 4, I was actually president of the Hispanic National Bar Association, traveled a great deal. I was in private practice, so spent a lot of time either traveling, doing HNBA related work, or working in a private law firm. And, you know, and of course, my daughter suffered to a certain extent. What happens is you have to make choices. Back then, we did not have the type of choices that you now have. The law firm that I was with, and I think at the time, would never consider my working part-time. Today, women, I think, have more opportunities. And what I would say, and this goes to one of the questions below, how do you overcome the fear of failure? And what do you attribute your confidence? What I would say with respect to fear of failure is sort of having a healthy outlook on it, understanding that failure is a part of life. I myself have suffered a number of failures in my career. You're going to make mistakes. You are going to fail. And failure comes to everyone in one form or another, in one shape or another. Some are big, some are small, whether they're personal or professional. And that's really, that's part of life. What I think where it makes a difference is getting up from that failure, getting back on the horse, turning back into, figuring out what you're going to do to get yourself back in a place where you feel comfortable and confident. My confidence certainly has taken a hit over the years. I'm frankly shaky about the fact that as a non-law professor, I'm writing this law review article, but you sort of have to work through it. Get through it, do it. My advice to all of you is ask before considering making a career change, you might want to consider asking your current employer if they might consider X or Y. I think you might find that some employers are much more open today than at the time that I was a young lawyer. There were far fewer opportunities. And in those days, law firms typically had one female law partner. That was all they were going to hire. And unfortunately, I grew up at the time in law practice where that one female law partner fiercely clung on to that position and saw other women as threats. We have now moved way beyond that point. And then finally, the last question is, and we have 8 minutes left, do we feel that it's important to affect policy change on issues that affect us substantively in the profession, but also on other issues? And I think absolutely yes. My involvement, like the justice, I became involved with bar association work and other types of volunteer work, including in my community, on issues that were important to me, girls and women. Those issues have always been important to me for very obvious reasons, including my background. And I think it's absolutely not only important for you to get involved, but very relevant for you to be involved, because without, I used to, my advice to the Latino presidents within the HNBA is Hispanic National Bar is never make a decision without a woman sitting at the table to weigh in with her advice. Because without us there, policies, and I think we see that now with reproductive rights and with other, the Dobbs case and other things that are going on. It is important and critical for us to be at the table to weigh in. Our voices are important, and getting involved, especially through bar association work, is not only valuable, but it's rewarding. I have formed lifelong friendships through the Hispanic National Bar and some of my other bar-related work. And Justice, those are some of the questions you might have responses to those as well.
Getting involved, it's not really just for networking. It is an opportunity to collaborate with others as a team to make and to affect change at any level. I found that to be the most an avenue outside of my own practice. When after work is work, and you have to bill, or you have to try a case, you get all of that. But a lot of my experiences and really attacking my why was being able to get involved, not just through the bar, but also through other local community efforts as well. And more recently, for example, even though opportunities come to me, serve on this board and serve on the board, I really have tried to kind of direct my attention on the areas that I feel like I can make the most impact. I also find that it's really important for me when I am invited to be at a table and there aren't a lot of people that look like me. They're not a lot of women. There's no real diversity. Those are the tables I prefer to get on, because then I feel like I could bring a voice or share a lens to a problem, or to provide and frame an appropriate solution that can best affect change to my community, for example. And I think that's important. I do think that the biggest challenge for women lawyers in particular is that they feel like they have to be very qualified before they accept an opportunity or a position or anything that comes with a title. Men are not like that. Men will be like, I'm totally unqualified, but give me a title. I'm going to be there. I'm going to get on this board. Women hesitate. Women need to lean in. Sometimes that experience comes from just getting on there and not discount what you can offer as a woman, as a practitioner, as a wherever, as a Laredoan, as a somebody from the past. I mean, there's diversity comes in many ways. And one of the things I'm focused on right now is as co-chair of our DEI, our new DEI committee here in our San Antonio Bar Association. That I think is some way that I can help contribute, bring and affect change that is long overdue, but without people with those experiences and that skill set, it can't reach its full potential. And I think women need to learn to get over themselves. You don't have to have a long CV before you can contribute in any way. So I see other comments. I really want to extend a shout out to all of our friends and colleagues that are out there, all the other individuals. Only a few of you have shared that you were on this call, but I know that there are so many individuals and lawyers that are on both sides of they're plaintiff lawyers, they're defense lawyers, they're in-house, they're on the bench or in front of a bench, or just trying to figure out, scratching your heads, trying to figure out what to do. And so I just want to provide some opportunities, especially those who, Latinas in particular, that are, or if you know someone who has just are open to opportunities. I'm going to shout out to Brianna Chapa. She's a co-founder of the Latina Summit that was sponsored here on the St. Mary's Law School campus. Invitations went out to all the law schools and many colleges. So for anyone who can lend that opportunity, it was the inaugural event. There will be every year an opportunity for Latinas, I call them Latinas, to come and learn more. And it's not just for future lawyers, it's current law students and even young and not so young Latino lawyers. It was an amazing experience for us, and it's I hope everyone reaches out for that opportunity. And then of course any women who are looking to work in law, or rather go into politics, to look up the UT LBJ School of Public Policy's New Women Campaign School. It's a non-partisan opportunity for women to learn how to get involved in that political arena, whether as a candidate or as a campaign manager. It's something I hope that anyone who's inspired to affect change at a local or statewide or even national level, that's a place to really learn from. So thank you again, Dolores, for the opportunity. I will take you up on that glass of wine so we could chat a little bit more about what you've been able to find. And I look forward to reading your next publication that is due out May 23rd, did you say?
May in 2023. It's going to be published by the UCLA Chicanx Latinx Law Journal. And Ronnie asked that we end with our thoughts on the future of Latinas in the legal profession. I am very optimistic about it. I heard about the Latina student gathering. A dear friend of mine, Dr. Jill Cruz, was a part of that session, and she and I collaborated on the Hispanic National Bar 2 studies back in 2009 and 2010. I love her. She's actually a part of the Luminarias symposium that will take place at UCLA at the Luskin Conference Center in October 5th through 8th in 2023 that follows the publication. I think our future is bright. We have, as I said, a disproportionate gross underrepresentation in the legal profession, but there are many different efforts such as the Latina conference that took place in Texas. We also have the Hispanic National Bar Association through the studies carrying out the blueprint that we laid for Latinas in the law. The symposium will focus on issues relevant to Latina law students and practitioners, professors, and deans. The focus is on Latinas. The majority of the panelists will be Latinas. And then the Graciela Olivares Academy was launched last June. It's being administered through Stanford Law School. The dean, Jenny Martinez, has lent her support to that effort, and they are actually focused on opening up the pool to recruit Latinas into legal education. We've had few. There will be statistics related to that in my study, but I'm very optimistic. There are a lot of things that are going on in the country. There are so many more Latina lawyers, and I'm so very, very pleased to see that. And I hope eventually that you all will not only increase the numbers, but have an incredible impact on not only the legal profession, but on our society as well. And I thank you also, Justice. It's been wonderful. And I look forward to having that bottle of wine with you as well.
Thank you. And a shout out, I really want to encourage everyone to get involved with the Center for Women in Law and to attend their power summits. Appreciate that you're here on this venue, but I've been a mentor and a judge at their competitions, and I've gone to for the last several years to their power summit to see some dynamic, amazing women, and to meet women from all over the country, but really here also in Texas, women lawyers who are just doing amazing things in the arena. I really encourage everyone to get connected with the center. Thank you, Ronnie, for this opportunity, and I appreciate everyone's attention this noon hour. So thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you so much, Justice Martinez, and thank you, Ms. Atencio. This has been fabulous, and we're so grateful that you shared your time and your perspectives with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. As I mentioned, today's program was approved for an hour of CLE credit, so you'll get a follow-up email from us tomorrow on how to claim that credit. And if you join by phone, just shoot us an email at Center for Women in Law Center for Women in Law at law.utexas.edu to make sure you get that credit. We will also have a recording of this program up on our website next week, so you can share it with your friends and colleagues who may have missed it. I hope that all of you will join us next week. That's next Wednesday, October 12th, for our Ginsburg Initiative panel discussion, Building Successful Coalitions to Advance Gender Equality. And I hope you will consider supporting the Center for Women in Law and our mission. Be sure to follow us on social media and on our website for upcoming programs and events. And again, thank you all so much. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you all.
Valerie. Goodbye, Justice.
Bye.
Take care. God bless.